was reading an article about Tom Ford. He just saw House of Gucci. And he said, I often laughed out loud, but I wasn't sure if I was supposed to.
I love Tom Ford.
He has lots to say.
I mean, he hasn't worked for them in years and years, right? Since
No, I know,
got
but
his own
he
label.
worked very closely with Maurizio, right?
For a little while, at least, if the movie's to be believed.
He left not quite sure what it was exactly that he saw. Somehow I felt as though I had lived through a hurricane when I left the theater.
As someone who has lived through multiple hurricanes.
That's apt.
Yeah.
It's me, Willow.
Oh my God. No, I'm Kristen. I can't do it.
You can't put on your best Bride of Dracula voice.
I don't have it in me. I don't have it in me.
You don't want to go full Angelina Jolie.
I don't even think I can physically do it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show, your new favorite pop culture YouTube channel where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. I need this to stop updating. It's like a light show happening on my screen. On today's episode, we are going to have a conversation about House of Gucci.
I don't consider myself to be a particularly ethical person, but I am fair.
We're gonna get into spoilers. It's that kind of show.
It's also a historical event.
It doesn't mean I knew.
It exists.
I actually, watching the trailer, I thought Jared Leto was the one that was murdered.
Oh.
Like, because gotta go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I was like, well, clearly she's killing him.
Honestly,
it was literally 2 or 3 days for the movie that I was like, oh.
Yeah. His ending actually made me feel sad, like feel bad. He was just an idiot.
Oh,
he didn't totally
Ridley
deserve
Scott
that.
is Aliens, correct?
Alien.
The franchise.
Well, he only directed the first one.
Well, didn't he do?
He's done then Prometheus and Covenant. But
right.
The 2, 3, and 4 are all.
But he's like a
directors.
thing. He's like a big deal.
Yeah, he's a thing. He made The Last Duel, which also came out this year. He made Matchstick Men, which is excellent. He made Black Hawk Down, which is excellent. He made Gladiator, which is excellent.
Gladiator. I knew there was.
He directed Legend, for Christ's sake. He's good at his job, usually. This was so baffling to me. This whole movie was so baffling to me. I don't understand how this is what happened. How Ridley Scott created this.
I think for me, and I think we're kind of on the same page. I don't know. I'm a little bit glad we had some time. Because actually, the more time I spent with it, the more time I was convincing myself that I kind of liked it or that I didn't hate. I don't think it's easy. I don't think that I can be like, this is good or bad.
It's not easy, but I think it was bad.
You think it was bad?
I think the biggest crime it committed, because, okay, I will say it's relatively beautifully done. Ridley Scott knows how to shoot a movie. There are sweeping vistas. It's Italy. It's, the clothes are all exactly as they should be. That stuff was all great. Leaving aside the 70s and early 80s of it all, which is just a bad time for fashion. But I think what is so baffling to me and what I find unforgivable is that it was like I was bored to death watching this movie. And there was no through line of anything.
The issue so that's 2 talking points. Yeah. They marketed this movie like it was going to be about the murder. Like it was about Patrizia murdering Maurizio. And that is that takes maybe 10 minutes, not even like 5 minutes of the movie is that. And I feel weird saying that they marketed it poorly because the title of the movie is House of Gucci. And that is effectively what it's sort of about, kind of not the early rise, because they talk a lot about Gucci and like
how it has like fallen from its previous grace.
But it is this sort of this section of this family's involvement with the brand.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, that's what it is about. But it was meandering. It was sort of like listless and wandering and meandering. And it starts kind of about their love story, but then halfway through the movie, they're just not in love anymore.
Well, it also starts with their love story, but you can see the entire time that she's not actually in love with him. She's just trying to get into the Gucci money.
Well, I think that that's an element of it, but I think she does love him. Well,
I don't know.
Was gay. I kept waiting. There's the scene when he's talking to the fashion twink.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And then that didn't happen.
Yeah, same.
Because he's swatting her off left and right in the beginning of the movie. Like, he's not, you're like, I saw that part.
That's the thing. That's the whole thing. It was like there was no point to it. Like, there was nothing that we were, like, narratively thrusting towards.
Well, you get the sense that they were filming a movie and Lady Gaga just kept crashing the set.
Yeah, I mean...
And she's not bad. And I would go as far as to say she's the only real reason to see the movie.
I mean, Adam Driver is excellent, as he always is.
He's doing
but
nothing.
It's also not...
He's doing nothing.
Not doing very much. And again, same for, Al Pacino and Jeremy Irons. But at the same time, even the scenes that they have together are, like, pointless. I don't remember anything they talked about, except for, like, what was it, like, make up with your son? Mm-hmm. That was, like... Also, she would have been so much better served to just let him be a lawyer and have that money. The Gucci money was like, took so much effort.
But no, you do get the sense that she sort of bullied her way into this production and held it hostage is kind of what the movie ultimately ends up feeling like until they just bent to her will. But the second thing you said is that you were bored the whole time. And this is where my conflict comes from, is because I was the most entertained when it was the worst. Like, there's a scene of Jared Leto and Al Pacino crying.
Yeah.
And I was going to compare it to something, and now I honest to God can't remember what it was. It was like they were in a competition with each other to, like, overact. And so...
Jared Leto.
There's a lot of talk about Jared Leto in this movie from the beginning. I mean, there was the whole, like, why even hire this person to play that role?
Look. I think Jared Leto is actually a very gifted actor.
I like him in spite of his best efforts.
I think he's fabulous. I also think he is one of the most attractive humans to ever walk the earth. And there's just no excuse why he's the one that got cast in this. You couldn't find anybody that looked remotely like him? Like Paolo.
So he had this quality that I liken to SNL when you're watching a particularly silly SNL skit and someone like a Pete Davidson or like a Jimmy Fallon keeps breaking. And it's like, it's one thing when people break because they can't handle it. It's another thing when they break and you can kind of tell they're signaling to the audience that they're above what's happening.
Sure.
And it just, this entire performance from him felt as if he was trying to make sure we understood that he knew he was better than this.
Okay.
Or do you understand what I mean?
100%, because I think he's very gifted. I don't think he's better than this movie. And I think if he had taken like 30% off of what he was doing, he would have risen above.
And I think
I would have thought he was too good for this movie. Jordan Catalano, remember where you came from.
Well, because it's him, Al Pacino, and Lady Gaga are in the same movie. But I think that Al Pacino is a caricature of himself, and Lady Gaga,
as he has been for a while.
Yeah, but Lady Gaga, she has such a earnestness and such a full, like, it's beyond horse girl, beyond theater girl commitment to it that she doesn't care.
No, 100%.
She doesn't care if she looks silly or not.
100%. And I think that's what makes her such a good actress. And again, it's
one of those where it's like, it's so bad that it swings back around into good.
Right. And because I also think you're right, is that she had this iron grip on the character that she was playing of Patrizia and the movie she was in. And I think
she bent the movie to her will.
Went for it. And so I think that is the reason she comes out pretty unscathed. And as I mentioned, Adam Driver, again, like you said, is doing nothing. But he comes out of this unscathed because he's Adam Driver.
We're not going to remember he was in this.
Yeah, I'm just going to be like, oh yeah, remember when Adam Driver was in that bad Gucci movie? That's it for me. The other one who I think can come out unscathed is Jack Houston. Again, he wasn't really, he was Domenico. The Maurizio's like body man or whatever.
Sure.
Also one of the most attractive men to walk the planet. I don't know. I mean, like, other than that, it's just so weird. I don't understand how this is what culminated from this large of a group that has this much talent.
Of accomplished people.
Yeah. I don't know how this was allowed to happen.
It's not even that they're mismatched, because though Lady Gaga is very frequently over the top in every facet, it's like she proved with Star is Born that she can ground.
Yeah.
And it's like I could see her and Jeremy Irons, or her like any one person, I could see her being in something with them.
Sure.
Because even right here, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, what was the point of the movie? And I guess it's like it's a tale of greed and corruption.
But only from her. Like, the rest of them are just like, Paolo is just trying to like make his mark on the family name.
Because we start with her, but and it's not that she turns into an afterthought, but it's like halfway through, it's like the direction of the movie changes.
She is also absent from like 15 straight minutes of the movie in the middle, which is not a lot in a 2 hour and 37 runtime, but she's just weirdly, we leave her completely. And we're just with Maurizio and his new lady.
But there's the scene where she's like intimidating Paola, or whatever her name was.
Yeah, I think her name was Paola.
There's a scene where she's intimidating her. And I was like, what I took from that is, oh, look at Patrizia embarrassing herself because she's reading into something that's not there.
Yeah.
And then it's like in the very next scene, he's left her for Paola. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
No, 100%. That also leads me to my biggest issue with the movie, and it is, in my opinion, an extremely huge plot hole. I would like to preface this by saying I don't know anything about the Reggiani family, if this is true or not, but the script and the movie posits that her family is in the mafia. That they are in the mob. Her father, Jeremy Irons says that at the beginning and is like, they have trucks. What do they transport? You know what they do? It's the mob. That's what he says to Maurizio. And so the whole time going through, I was like, oh, okay, so we're going to start getting into some like mob connections or something. And like, what the fuck?
You know, those 3 days after Thanksgiving fireworks.
Unbelievable. So anyway, I was thinking, well, we're going to get into some mob connections. That's going to be cool.
And that's where the hit is going to come.
And that's where the hit is going to come from. She's going to pull on her family, could be like, Daddy, he left me. Do something about it. Nope. It's
her psychic friend.
Her psychic friend's friends who kill people. And I was like, are you fucking serious?
There is an absolutely baffling Selma Hayek in this movie.
I'll tell you why she's in this movie. It's because her husband owns Gucci now.
Oh, isn't he like a hotelier or something?
He's like a lot of things, but he's a billionaire. That's not to say that I think that this was necessarily nepotism, and Salma Hayek is great as she
she's phenomenal.
Always is.
But I suppose she's in 12 minutes
10
of the
minutes,
movie.
yeah.
But that's the thing, is that it's like I almost wonder if Ridley Scott wanted to make a like camp classic and then chickened out at the last minute.
Maybe. Because
is it the editing? Is it the direction? Is it like, I can't pinpoint what exactly it is.
It's a lot of, I think it's a lot of those things, because Rachel and I were talking on the way back from the movie, and she was like, there also was no, like, this movie, I in my heart of hearts believe this movie could have been half an hour shorter if they had just knit together the dialogue tighter, because there were many moments where there was just like 10 seconds of dialogue in between everybody's response to each other, and I was like, this is just like painful to watch. Horrible. Like, they just let the camera run while they were all improvising in these like Mario and Luigi accents. It was super weird.
They mentioned this on Pop Culture Happy Hour. I did listen to that, but there is a point in the movie, and this is where and why I think that production does know the movie was ridiculous, because this couldn't have gotten through there. But it's after Jared Leto has sent Al Pacino to jail, and he makes this like drop the soap joke
Yeah.
Where he's like, I can only hear Stephen Thompson in my head now. I've lost the Jared Leto.
Lost the Jared Leto of it.
But Stephen Thompson delivers it like he's like, but what if you drop of the soap? And it sent a shockwave through the theater.
Yeah.
There was probably 15, 20 people max.
But we literally all were like, oh.
But there was a guy and a woman behind us, and the guy laughed, but it wasn't like a ha ha ha. It was like a, oh boy. And
like you're being held hostage and they tell you to laugh.
It's such a bad joke.
Yeah.
It's such a tired joke, but also you're sitting there imagining this like disgusting version of Jared Leto worried that someone is going to be prison raping Al Pacino.
Yeah.
And so it puts this really weird, that's just a joke that doesn't get made anymore.
Yeah.
And it just sort of repulsed me.
It would have been made in the time that it was occurring.
Yeah.
But not today. And also, that was a white collar crime that Al Pacino committed. He would not be in that type of prison
showers.
Just saying.
It's just such a weird, it's like, I don't think that, I've seen 5 seasons of Oz. I don't think that's how.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a sex scene in this movie.
Oh my God.
And this is also kind of why I thought he was gay and all this stuff. Because he was like horseplaying with the guys.
Yeah.
They were like tickle fight, like wrestling each other. And then he like goes in and just rails Lady Gaga. Like,
yeah, I assumed it was.
It's a type of sex that does happen.
Yeah, but it is okay. So it is very clearly their first time having sex.
Was it? See, this is like the 3rd time you've said something was very clear, and I've gone, oh, it wasn't. It was.
And I just assumed it was his first time having sex ever, but it might have just been his first time having sex with a woman. But that again, there's no. It was really like that. It really do be like that.
And he's like practically slamming her head into it.
But that's the thing for me about this movie is that the things that I felt were clear to me also can be reinterpreted a different way. And that is the thing that's so frustrating is that it just doesn't feel like there was any forethought put into the actual story they wanted to tell because it just meanders from one thing to the next. And the only through line is that Patrizia is trying to get him reingratiated back into the family. And then she just immediately starts doing crime. She's forging signatures on like stock certificates. And I mean, from minute one. And I just... she's like really into all the free Gucci stuff, which, I mean, who wouldn't be? But it gets into such a point where, like, how did Adam Driver not see all of this? How did Mauricio not see all of the writing on the wall sooner? Like, they were in this for, like, years before he was like, I'm gonna go with my old blonde friend instead.
There's also so many, which also, we needed to meet her
sooner way sooner.
Differently.
Because that's the other thing, too, that's never explained, is the, like, whatever the international or like Italian version of the SEC is, comes to raid their house in Milan, and he escapes. He
ducks out to Switzerland
on his motorcycle to go to the Swiss Alps, which is fine. But like, I don't believe that Switzerland doesn't have extradition policies in place with Italy. So is he actually safe there? Is it like because they're neutral, they can't get him from this neutral place? I don't know. It's not explained. And then we just like there in the Swiss Alps meet his old blonde friend. And then Lady Gaga immediately is like, fuck you and get away from my husband. And I'm like, you are doing too much. And I really thought that scene, I thought we were setting her up to be like a mob kingpin kind of a thing. And this really just sort of was the Italian version of the Nancy Kerrigan attack. Where it was just like a couple of buffoons.
Very I, Tanya.
Yeah, a couple of buffoons like barely getting the job done.
So I brought up Selma Hayek, and it like there's the scene where she sees her psychic show on television, and she calls in, and I was like, I don't know that that's how that worked.
Well, they didn't ask for any money or payment or anything.
No, she calls in live on TV. Like you can hear the echo, and they're doing this weird seduction thing. The two of them, like But again, it's like those are weirdly the places where I was sort of more interested.
Sure.
But there was a smash cut.
But then they didn't explore that stuff.
There's a smash cut towards the end where it's after we're supposed to, like, after Patrizia or Maurizio is leaving Patrizia and we're meant to think that she's sort of desperate and pathetic. Yeah. And so it like smash cuts to her with Salma Hayek, who's living with her now. I don't know. And there's just hundreds of cats. Like, and it's just this really weird cat lady trigger. Yep. And you're like, I guess that's sort of the thing that you're getting at, where you're like, clearly this is meant to be such and such. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I don't know if that was a shorthand, if that was meant to be funny. Like, I don't either. Was it meant to trigger that they're pathetic? Like, I mean, that's kind of what it accomplished, but it was sort of out of nowhere. I also wanted to touch on, there were a lot of on-the-nose needle drops, and this has been a very on-the-nose needle drop type of year. Yeah. Movie-wise. Some of them worked. Like, some of I liked a lot of, although I cannot believe that they resisted the urge to score the actual murder with Time to Say Goodbye. Yeah. Do you know what I'm like, well, why? Oh, now we have restraint. Yeah. Like,
the part for me that honestly I liked the most out of all of it was way to the end when they like discovered Tom Ford. The Tom Ford. I was about to be like, there's a really like well cast Reeve Carney as Tom Ford, and we also don't find out that he is Tom. Like, they don't say the name Tom Ford until well into his arc. And I didn't know who he was. I didn't either. And so I was like, oh, because I was like trying to say, like, who does he look the most like? I couldn't place him.
I just figured he was some up and comer, but the second they say it, I was like, oh, I could have used that 10 minutes ago. Yeah. And that part, but that's also, he came in and sort of like course corrected for Gucci. Well, exactly. And if only he could have course corrected the whole movie. But I will say that the last 30 minutes was the part I enjoyed the most. And I don't know if it's because I saw a light at the end of the tunnel, or if it was just the energy from the fashion show. And then they had that, but they did have that really tense dinner with the Iraqi investors. I liked that. I thought that was interesting. The power play of that was like very cool. And it was like, in my opinion, one of the most well-crafted scenes in the movie from like a dialogue and an editing perspective and everything. I really enjoyed that. It was like a bunch of the more intriguing characters in a room together. If you had told me that we were going to get a big budget fashion house mafia or organized crime movie from Ridley Scott, I would just think it was going to be so much more competent than this. Yeah, and that's the thing. Because it also, I mean, the fashion was fine, and there were times that it was better than others, but also I was sort of like, this should be like, we should be bathing in more of this than we are. Mm-hmm. And because also was Paolo, was he meant to be bad? Like, I liked it. I thought his stuff was cool. I was like, this is good. And then they immediately slapped him with a breach of contract and a cease and desist and all kinds of stuff. And I was just like, come on. There's a point where his accent, he goes so thick. And I made a Borat joke to Rachel where he was like talking and I go, my wife. And then seconds later, he actually does that twice in a row. And me and Rachel were like, it took us all the way out. I don't know. I just think that the meandering quality of it, not knowing what story they wanted to tell, it really hobbled this movie so that it just is a 2.5 hour slog that you're sitting through in order to watch something happen that you get the first 30 seconds of at the beginning of the movie. The murder opens the movie. It just cuts before the gunshot. And it's just like, so then we have to watch the whole beginning scene again at the end until it follows through. And because I started to be like, I mean, obviously they're dealing with history, so it's like they're beholden to the truth to a certain extent. But the problem is it feels that way. Yeah. Like you're not getting narrative satisfaction. Yeah. This movie could have been an hour and a half long if we had just condensed a lot of these machinations into something that like zips through it a little faster. And like, I'm not opposed to a 2-hour, biopic or whatever, but this did not know
what part of the story it cared about the most, and so it just told all of them, and like 40% of them are boring and they shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, I feel like I have more to say, or I feel like there is more to say, but
I'm sure there is more to say, but I'm with you. I think that a Ridley Scott movie about this topic should have been way more competent, and it is the incompetence for me.
You know what it feels like? It feels like a season of American Crime Story that got edited into a movie run. And so...
But that was not directed by Ryan Murphy.
I mean, a little bit.
No, but it would have been flashier if it was from Ryan Murphy.
And that's I think what I mean when I was like the aesthetics weren't there, because like Ryan Murphy would have at least we would have enjoyed ourselves, even if it made no goddamn sense. But
well, do you want to hear a fun casting thing that almost happened? Chris Evans was almost Maurizio. Adam Driver was having scheduling conflicts, and Chris Evans was the second choice, and then Adam Driver's scheduling conflicts opened up. I don't think Chris Evans would have been good. I love Chris Evans, but I don't think it would have helped at all. And again, Adam Driver is the least offensive part of this movie. He's like, it's nothing.
If he's offensive, it's in that he's just not doing anything.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how you could be on set with some of those people and not think, ooh, I need to kick this up a notch.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's sort of like, it's not an incredibly nuanced or interesting turn from Jeremy Irons or Al Pacino.
They were like the decision to take all of these Americans and put them in this movie.
There's no other Italian. Only Al Pacino was the only Italian person.
And then make them do Italian accents. It's like that feels sort of like we used to make movies that way, but we haven't in a while.
It was borderline racist against Italians.
That's what
not
Rachel
kidding.
said. She said it was like a Chef Boyardee commercial.
It was
like
a bad. Really not good.
People were talking about Chernobyl when it came out, and
Chernobyl.
I'm from fucking Leavesden, Chernobyl. They like all have like English and kind of Irish accents because those are the actors they dealt with. And they were like, it was the decision we made early on because they're like, it does not impact the storytelling at all. Yeah. And they were like, and if they made these people put on Russian accents, it would have been distracting.
Okay, but I will say that the class of actor in Chernobyl is... honest to God, a little bit of a higher caliber.
We keep finding ways to give Lady Gaga an accent. And it's like, did you see her on the red carpet?
I feel very like that drag queen where I want to just be like, just say talk.
Just say talk.
Just talk.
Jujubee. I think, yeah. There's a shot of her on the red carpet, Gaga, and she goes in a 30-second time span. She goes from her like Patrizia into just Lady Gaga English, and then talking to Salma Hayek, she goes into like a Spanish, and someone retweeted it, and they were like, "Big Dorit energy from Real Housewives."
I get that for sure.
And it's the kind of thing that she's so heightened that it's mostly fine. Although her press tour for this has been,
I feel like it's been a little messy. Yeah,
it's been a little bit unhinged. She's really girl bossing it up because, of course, being the person that she is, she has a lot of empathy for Patrizia, and it's just sort of like.
I saw her say a quote where she was like, "I don't condone murder, but I do condone the empowerment of women," or something. I was like, "Shut up!" I was like, "Stephanie, please."
It's very that, and so I will be glad because I think she's got some several stellar performances and a handful more turkeys than her. And so I'll be.
That's the thing is like, even this, if you just took her performance in a vacuum, I think it's fine. Her performance is fine. I think her performance in A Star Is Born is way better. But I wouldn't even consider this a turkey performance from her. You know, this is fine. She can do 10 more of these, and I think people will still keep giving her money.
On Pop Culture Happy Hour, they were predicting that the movie will be nominated for both Oscars and Razzies for the same performances and the same things.
Well, I don't think Jared Leto is going to get a nomination for an Oscar, but he could get a nomination for a Razzie. I mean, see it if you want.
And that's what its biggest crime is the places where it's boring.
Yeah.
And I
did most of it.
I did feel every minute of it. I checked my watch about 4 or 5 times.
And I generally don't, but I kept leaning over to look at my phone and be like, what fresh hell is the next 30 minutes going to give me?
I was telling Rachel, like, we've got an hour left.
Rachel and I multiple times just looked at each other and we were like, what is the point of this? Nothing's happening.
So, okay, well.
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter @soimwatching, Instagram @soimwatchingthisshow. We have a website, soimwatching.com, which links out to everything. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/soimwatchingthisshow. We have a Cash App. We have a Venmo. We have a coffee.
Give it to us so we don't have to steal it.
Yeah, you know. Otherwise, I'm going to physically lean into you and force your family to accept me as one of their own. All right.
Bye.
Bye.